Welcome to Vartalapa or Conversation, a podcast born from countless conversations that had to become more than just passing thoughts. I'm Srividya Venkatasubramanya, founder and executive director of the Rave Cultural Foundation, where we bring the richness of traditional Indian performing arts. This limited podcast series delves into the values of diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, transforming them from concepts into actions we live by. Through stories, shared experiences, and discussions with friends and experts from the community, we explore the intricate world of running an arts and culture-based nonprofit. By presenting our worldview on various topics related to our mission and work, we hope to inspire you to learn more about us and join us in our mission to bring people together and make a difference in the world we live in. Our mission at Rave Cultural Foundation is to share and celebrate traditional Indian performing arts with the Northwest Arkansas community and beyond. Through real-world experiences, inspiring performances, community showcases, classes, food, or jam sessions, the Rave Cultural Foundation sponsors events, provides education, and offers training in the arts and culture of India. I hope that Rave will leave its impact on our community by normalizing diversity. Hi everyone, welcome. I'm Srividya Venkatasubramanya, the founder and currently the executive director of Rave Cultural Foundation. Today I'm talking to some more friends in Northwest Arkansas, people who stepped up to including others in their work and programming. So I'm so thrilled to talk to all of you. I'll just have each one of you introduce yourselves, your backgrounds, how you came to be here, and then we'll take it off from there. We'll start with B.
All right. I'm Beatrice Apple. I am the co-founder and owner of Hillfolk, a textile shop and studio in Bentonville, Arkansas at 8th Street Market. And I also have co-founded Bike POC, which works to create more diverse spaces in cycling and the outdoors. Orson.
Hi. Thanks, Sheree. Orson Weems with the Music Education Initiative. I'm the executive director and co-founder, and we're glad to be in Northwest Arkansas. Our mission is literally to engage, educate, and elevate the professionals in the business of music, entertainment, and live events. And that's what we want to do here. And we've collaborated with Ravi and Shri and so many others here. And we're just happy to be here.
Thank you. And you, Paul?
I am Paul Savas. I'm the executive director of Ovations Plus, and we are the result of the merger between Tricycle Theater for Youth and Arkansas Philharmonic Orchestra. And we do performances and education for youth and families in music and theater, and eventually hoping to onboard some dance. And we do a lot of work with y'all on that aspect too. And been in the theater all my life.
Right. Yeah, amazing. I enjoy my job, since the time I started Rave. And of course, a lot of you know that we used to do something called Sargam, we started in 2009, which used to be an annual showcase of, Indian performing arts. So imagine Rave right now, but only one event a year. That was Sargam. So since then, we've been meeting people in the community and, reaching out to schools and venues and, trying to find a good tech person, to get the mics and the speakers going and just everything, every aspect of what is needed, right? Mm-hmm. And we've met some wonderful people, and there have been, there are people that become friends and there are people who remain as acquaintances. But I'm so fortunate to have met people like you who not only who don't check off a box, right, when it comes to diversity or inclusion work, right? We are a little more committed than that. So today, let's just talk more about how we all have come together in different ways and what are the challenges and how are we moving along year after year. I want to start with Orson, because this is a very interesting story. So Orson has been working with the Pryor Center at Fayetteville, downtown Fayetteville.
Yes.
And it's a historic building. And he tells me they host the. Can you talk a little bit more about the Blues Shack?
Sure, certainly. Thank you. The BC's Blues Shack, we call it the Juke Joint Project,
Right.
and the Pryor Center down on the square in Fayetteville is the host of our exhibit, which is the exhibit itself is a walk-through replica of a Delta juke joint. And the thing about it is when the Pryor Center agreed to host it for me, I wrote a narrative to explain to them that, number one, I wanted it to be a cultural exhibit. And the second thing I wanted it to be was a community exhibit to be utilized for so many different performances, activations, and it's achieved that goal. Something that started out as a 3-month project has now been extended into 2025. So
amazing!
Yeah, so
wow,
we've done-
congratulations!
Thank you. So it started in. We actually did the first I think performances in 2022. So here we are moving into 2025. We've already had so many different things. We have over 12,000 visitors a year that just come through and they take pictures and post. Some people just show up to the Blues Shack and just bring out their instruments and sit on the porch. And so it's great. So we collaborated with Ravi.
Yeah, so
doing one
Orson, so Orson comes to one of our house concerts featuring Megha Rao,
Oh, yeah.
the dancer, right?
Yeah.
And he just falls in love with her, and he says, and then he tells me, "Oh, why don't you guys come and visit the Blues Shack?" And I'm like, "Okay, what is a Blues Shack?"
So
I'm from all over from India. Okay, I have no idea what a Blues Shack is.
right.
And I go and it's so interesting. Again, it is so beautiful, the concept, and the history of blues music and everything. And we were sitting there and we were looking, and then Orson tells me, "Vidya, we need to have a Bharatanatyam performance over here with Megha."
That's right.
And I'm like, "Orson, what does blues music have to do with Bharatanatyam?"
Oh, there's so many certain overtones that I hear. I hear blues music elements.
That's right. It can be. That's right.
And that's what happened.
That's what
exactly. And what we did was we did find a connection between blues music and Bharatanatyam, because both, one of so India gained its independence from British colonial rule. It was not just the British. We had the Portuguese, we had other people also, the French and everything. So we basically became independent in 1947. And when Bharatanatyam performances would happen in those decades, those early decades of the 50s and the 60s, they would always have a section on Indian freedom movement songs. So there were a lot of songs and poetry that was created during the freedom movement for over 100 years. It was not like 10 or 50 years. People had been protesting long enough.
Yeah.
And so what we did was we created this, I helped put together the concept of what we ended up calling matumaini, which is an African word for hope.
Yes.
It's a Swahili word for hope. And we very particularly chose an African name for the, event, for the performance, because it was about going back to your roots. And in the case of African American slaves, the history of that, a lot of them didn't even know where they came from, because they were kidnapped, they were abducted, they were just brought over forcibly. And, at least a lot of us Indians, we know where we come from. But this group of people, they didn't even have that connection. And that was so, it was so during our conversations, that's what we came up with, pain is something we all have in common.
Yes. And it turned out to be performing art, music, and spoken word poetry, and it was just fabulous. It really was. And I think we did live stream on that.
Yeah,
so it was really wonderful and watched by a lot of different people. And it was just such a mix of different cultures. People couldn't figure out, how does this work here? And then the way we set up the venue itself was that Megha was able to dance right in front and through the crowd as they're sitting there watching it. So it's wonderful.
Which is how, the street performance, the concept of a street performance, of just performing
out there without a stage, without mics and, things like that. I think that's so common to all our cultures.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
We also did the connection of the flash mob that we did. And folks had never seen that here.
Yeah.
And we did it right before one of the shows of some artists we brought in that were at the Momentary.
At the Momentary,
And we did
yes.
it outside on the, what do they call it, the little plaza area
Right.
right in front.
Yeah.
We did an incredible flash mob, and all of a sudden people in Bentonville are like, what's going on? It's about 40, 50 people all of a sudden. Yeah. So we did that, and we have some other things that we look forward to working with.
So
It's all music and
Yeah.
fun and life and
Yeah.
experience.
Celebrate it.
It's celebrated. It's like part.
Yeah.
exactly. And then to see that, we have so much more in common than different,
Yeah.
We've all struggled through challenges, each one of us, historically, going back to our ancestries. But we all move forward, with, by learning more about each other. That is truly the way to go forward.
So the music, dance, art, so it's a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Yes, what better way to move forward?
Right.
Eating good food is what.
Oh, start.
She always serves something good.
Always. I mean, come on, tell me. Each one of us is from a very different background, right? Cultural background. But come on, be honest. Is there any time, any memory you have of having a good time without food?
Well,
We go into that.
Not drink. Not drink.
exactly.
A number of the collaborations that we've done they haven't really centered around food, but they have had elements of food, just because it's such an easy, first of all, delicious, but then also such an easy way to bring people together, and to have them feel like they're in a community, around, breaking bread together. So food, super important.
I think some of these things, we just take it for granted sometimes. Truly, there is something so sacred about breaking bread with each other. Like, for both of us to share that space, that physical space, where I'm eating with my hands and you are perhaps eating with your spoon or a fork, and to be comfortable with each other in that space, and not really, and to be, to get that spice, running in your bloodstream versus, something, from, that may be more cheesy, or, like, I didn't mean it in the way of cheesy, but something with cheese on it, something, which is, which may not have as much spice in it, but which we enjoy just as much. But let's talk, Paul, a little more about what we've been up to for the past few years.
Yeah. So
because that's a very unique thing, again, what we've been doing.
Yeah, I know. It really is. So, being a theater professional and artist for so many years, collaborations is a daily event. It's how you pull off a production. It's how you do it. And I think it's a real unique hubris to think that you have all the skills that you need in order to execute all of the areas of the art form that need to be executed on, and not only is collaboration sort of in the DNA of theater, but then uniquely and positively, the American experience, I think, is to make sure that the melting pot that we all say we are is a celebration of all of the different types of approaches to life, rather than a blending into a beige or whatever color happens after that. So the projects that Rave and Ovations, and before Ovations, Classical Theater, engaged on was to find a really great way that we could create a harmony with perhaps unsimilar things. So we took an old story, Jungle Book, which is not a typically certainly colonial kind of based, but then we approached it in a way that sort of busted those
Yes.
confines and those
Yes.
shackles, really.
Yeah.
And
I remember that first meeting we had about Jungle Book, like the first meeting that we
Yep.
had with Cassie and
Yep.
you and me and everybody, Mega. And,
in your back room.
and I was like, no, I don't want to do Jungle Book. Come on, you can't find a better story than that.
Right.
But I had a lot of misgivings coming in. But then the more we read the script and, everything, I was like, oh, okay, interesting. I didn't know Jungle Book could be said in that way too. So.
Yeah, it was really important for me, and my influence on the show with being the executive director is actually kind of minimal, really. But it was important for me that we do that script because of those issues,
Right.
so that we
Right.
can show that the collaboration of different cultures together to focus on telling a really great story kind of busted that. And with our next collaboration, I'm hoping that we bust more things, right? And become sort of even closer sort of team members than we were on the previous one.
Yeah, and I think collaboration, one is artistic collaboration, which Matumaini was, full and full. And then there are collaborations when we work with companies like Trike or Ovations now. There's so much happening in the background. There's so much technical stuff that is needed to pull off a show. And what happens when you are a minority, when you are an immigrant minority in a region, you don't have access to those resources. So you need a lighting designer, but you don't have access to that because the lighting designer does not understand how a Bharatanatyam performance has to be lighted because they are used to lighting theater.
Correct.
And Bharatanatyam is different from theater in that sense because the face has to be lit up well, otherwise you'll miss what the dancer is trying to show through her expressions. So there are a lot of these challenges, and again, just as we have to learn, like Megha had to learn a lot about how to work with these resources in this community because she was so used to working with resources back home that already understood what she wanted.
Yep.
So she had to learn to communicate in a different way. And people here were challenged to learn to work with her because they had zero background. Like they didn't even know what Bharatanatyam was or how to approach it. And it took us it has taken us, I remember the first performance Megha gave for Rave, which was her very first full Margam performance, was at a middle school stage with just barely any lighting. We still have the pictures and you can barely see Megha on the stage.
Fluorescent lights from 30 feet away.
Something like that.
Yeah.
And from there we did a few performances at the Walton Arts Center. And, I'm so grateful to the team there that put up with us because we had no idea because we didn't know. And that's the whole thing. We didn't know and we couldn't afford a full-time, a person of that caliber to do all that designing for us. And so to work with Trike and to find that partnership of, okay, how can you help us and how can we help you? Right, that took a lot, and that was not a smooth ride.
No, and I think that part of the job in this work, not just the work of producing Jungle Book, but in the work of sort of cross-cultural collaborations, is that you have to really purposefully, proactively understand each other's approach, and it can't just be we're going to do our show and we want you to join us,
right.
Which is kind of what Jungle Book was in retrospect. And now what we're really trying to do is really understand the two approaches. So those are what you're doing is you're basically adding ingredients to the elements of the theatrical piece that you can do. Not only is it lighting and costume and sound and whatnot, now it's artistic and cultural approaches to the story that are also a tool in telling and pulling out a story and shaping one. And I believe that it's a much better story. Because it's just so much more interesting and celebratory of the people and the communities that we are.
Absolutely, absolutely. We all come from a history of storytelling, myths and legends, and all of us have it. All human beings, we all have it.
Yeah.
But these stories, the way they're retold, the way they are remembered, it is different. It is different, and there have been these. I think the colonial period has been a very big disruptor of a lot of these traditions, so when we come, when we regroup, when we continue to regroup now, it's still taking a lot. That was a few hundreds of years. So it's going to take a few hundreds of years, perhaps. I hope sooner. I hope within my lifetime. But so we are getting there. We are getting there.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about something totally different with B. Yeah, we've been collaborating on cloth.
Yes. And it's actually it's different, but it's not, because, you talked about storytelling and how it's been disrupted by, colonialism and all of these forces. And I really feel like, as people of the diaspora, like this generation, we are in the privileged position of being able to capture a lot of these folk traditions in terms of making and creating in these old-fashioned, slow methods. But we're also, trying to save the actual technical skills, but also in the process capturing the stories of the people who came before us, because that pattern was disrupted with colonialism and war and being refugees and coming to this country. There is a gap, and we see it in the craft world where, the last two generations, we'll say millennial, Gen X, and then boomers, and then the great, the silent generation, there's been this real disruption around the passing down of traditional handcrafts. So, knitting, sewing, block printing, all of these things that we make with our hands, they've been kind of shooed off to the side, through the Industrial Revolution, because they're not fast, right? They're things that require a lot of patience and time and relationship and education. And so all of these things that we all experience in our own work, whether it be music or theater or whatever, we're kind of experiencing that in the craft world, where we're in the position of recognizing that we want to save these things for ourselves to be able to pass them on to our children and to our children's children. And then also we are experiencing, even within our own families and our own communities, a lot of elders who have these stories. And a lot of them are also dealing with PTSD and generational trauma. And as we have had the privilege of being able to heal from these things, because we've been able to live in relative comfort versus what our parents had to experience, we're the ones that are tasked with healing kind of that genetic trauma that's kind of been passed down, and breaking generational cycles within our own families, but then also leveraging that healing to have these conversations with our parents and our grandparents, so that we can hear the stories of what did you guys do in Korea before, when the Japanese were still occupying, and then how was it during the war, and then what was it like when you left? Because, we have to draw them out of our parents, because they're tough stories to tell, but we don't, it's an interesting. So, all that to say, our collaboration, I think, we've just known each other, I think, and just through we've kind of circled around each other, because we have a lot of mutual friends. But when we had the opportunity to collaborate on Welcoming Week activations 2 years ago, at Hillfolk, we had already we loved block printing, we loved natural dyeing, we were very familiar with the natural dyeing processes that happen in India, and then so being able to partner with you guys to have y'all in our space and block printing with traditional Indian textiles, but then also aside from the educational piece of it, just being able to be in community. A lot of what I think about the importance of what we do and why we do it is, we're here to experience joy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we there's one life, and that joy exists in community, and it's like, it's literally when our souls meet in these places, and that creative spark ignites, and it's like, and these things that we never thought could even mesh together, or it's not that they couldn't, but it's just we've never seen it before.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like having those moments in the shop where, people are coming in from outside and they're seeing our group, like block printing and talking about these things, and having people of all different ages there. It's just joy is powerful, and it shakes it busts through the doors. It's like the Kool-Aid man, like it's just there.
Yeah, and when you are, again, when you are a minority, and when you are talking about, again, batik or in any kind of dyeing process, again, is common to all cultures. We have it in different forms with different raw materials, but we've all had it. But like you say, to come together for that. Indian muslin, for example, we use the Deccan cloth. Deccan. I mean, that's like world famous for centuries, if not millennia, right? Indian cotton, that very fine weave.
Yeah, and they still haven't figured out how to make it.
Yeah.
So there's like this. It's like this incredibly fine cotton thread, and it's hand spun, but like, that technique was lost, and when it was like. It was brought over to England, and then like they tried.
And
they brought these artists over, and then they realized it took and it just like, and then so they imitated it, and then that ended up supplanting the traditional. But like to this day, they're still trying to figure out how to get the threads that fine. And
even today it's hand woven. A lot of it is hand woven, and the dyeing techniques that are used even today. There's a big resurgence in India for handlooms and for hand embroidered or handmade fabrics and so on, and and again, to pool resources, because I mean, I hate that word Asian, not as a word,
right.
As in it tries to bunch together a whole so many diverse people and cultures, and each one that's thousands of years old, and
right.
And but the more we can come together, it helps us boost our economies.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And I think I love the tradition, especially with women, and is that like the making of things has always been a tool for economic empowerment in the home.
Yes.
And, I think about like, my experience with my family as immigrants, like, when you don't speak the language, and when your community is still very small because there's not a lot of you yet, it's like, you got to make money. And how do you do it? And it has often been craft and the making of things and the making of food that are kind of central to the home that has given women all over the world for thousands of centuries the ability to kind of have some determination over their own lives and have some economic freedom. So I'm so passionate about creating those small opportunities at home.
Yes, thank you all. I really appreciate all of you sharing. That was the whole point of this podcast, right? To just bring out all those different reasons why we collaborate and why we do, why it is important that we continue to collaborate, because there's true strength in all of us coming together, and true joy.
Oh,
there's just so much
I feel
fun.
I feel it. And it's like, I just love, even being able to come into this room today, and I had like 3 problems, and I got 3 people to answer them, and I'm like, this is the work. This is why we do what we do. It's
absolutely. Thank you all so much. And we'll hope to see you next in one more event.
Yes, thank you.
So you're welcome.
Bye.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of Vartalapa. Thank you for joining us as we explored the world of nonprofits and the values that drive us. A huge thanks to our guests for their insights and stories. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with your friends. Let's keep these important conversations alive and thriving. You can find our podcast of Vartalapa or Conversation on Spotify and our YouTube channel. Be sure to tune in, stay curious, stay connected, and join us next time on Vartalapa. Until then, keep making a difference in your world.